All right, everything's done, dried off, ready to go. Let's get this thing back together. I'm going to move this part of the body out of the way for right now. We'll start with the float bowl. Take the float bowl plug. There's an O-ring that goes around it. Just make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. There's an O-ring that goes around it. Put it right around the base of it. Screws right into the bottom. The O-ring keeps it from leaking. Take your 5/8 wrench. Snug her down. Again, nothing on a carburetor needs to be cranked down really hard. Okay. So, we're going to take this little, oh geez, I almost dropped it. This little tiny spring. And that's going to go in the one right here, right next to the brass plug that you just put in. You're going to drop this little tiny spring in there. And this is tiny. That's how big it is. You guys all see it? Where is it? Right here in my hand. It is just a little tiny spring. That's the one that the ball bearing is going to go on top of. Okay. Now, take one of your ball bearings, put it right on top of that spring, and then you take one of your blue rubber O-rings, and that goes right down around it. Then you have your other ball bearing. These things are, I say ball bearings, they're only the size of a BB. And you drop that in the hole right next to it. And then you take your other blue rubber O-ring, set that right on top of that one. All right. I wonder. I'm just looking, and it looks like one of these. No, I guess they're the same. Pop them in their little hole. Now, without losing either one of your BBs, just set that real gently right there. You're going to take the cap that goes on this. All nice and clean now. That BB sits right up against there and seals that hole. Now, you're going to put your spring in here. That's the spring. You're going to set it in there. You're going to take the bottom of the concave part of the diaphragm is going to go right on top of that. And we're going to turn it over. And set it on there. That's what it's going to look like when it's in there. I don't know how well you can see this. I'm holding it down with my finger because there's a spring under it. Now we got to. Okay, that didn't work. let's try this one more time. I don't know how I'm going to do that. There we go. I think I got it that time, people. Had to get it up in the light. That's a little tricky, so be careful. You don't want to pinch that diaphragm in there and not have it sealing like it's supposed to. Careful, make sure you don't cross-thread anything. Again, be gentle with all this. You do not want to crank down on any of these screws except just to snug them down. These are aluminum bodies on this and steel screws. You'll strip the threads right out of the aluminum body. So just snug them down. That's all you need. Okay, so that's what that's going to look like. Remember, the long screw that holds the float ball on goes in that hole. So this is where the fuel line hooks up on the newer ones. This comes off at a 90 and it actually swivels around. It's a nice little setup. Okay. Now, I'm going to set this aside for a second. We're going to take this body and start putting pieces in that. Oh, you know what? No, I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to get the float. The float and the float assembly back in this. You take the float. Dun, dun, dun. Get in front of the camera here. This is your, that's what goes on the float, goes down in the hole. It's tapered when it goes down in the hole. Down in this brass fitting, the hole down at the bottom is tapered. And when your float goes up and down, this goes up and down, and it either chokes off the gas or gives it more gas, depending on what it needs. So you just take this, and you hang it on there just like that. You take the brass rod that it pivots on, and you just put that through there like that. Now, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. This brass housing right here is what that's going to go down into, and you got to get that brass rod setting these two grooves across here, and there's a screw that's going to go in here to hold it down. So, like so. See if I can give you a good shot of that so you can see what it looks like. And you have to get you over here a little more in the light. Adjust the camera some. Okay. Now, if you can see this, that's the brass rod. This is down in the brass housing, and when it pits, see how that goes up and down? That's what turns your gas on, or lets gas into the float ball. Okay, and then this screw goes right here. And that's what holds it all in there. Now, I'm not going to monkey around with measuring float height or anything because I rode this bike for a few years before it went on the lift, so I know it ran fine. But just to show you, see, that's how you want to make sure that pivot's okay and doesn't get caught up on anything. Now, on this brass part here, don't forget, there's one last little O-ring, and it's tiny. See how big it is compared to my fingernail? That goes right on here. All right. There it goes. I'll set that aside for now. And we're going to get back into this body. I took the main jet out. This is a 1/2 inch. This just screws right back down into here. And your wrench. Snug it up. Like I said, just snug. Don't crank on anything. Now, this is your secondary jet. And again, well, I guess that was off camera a little when I screwed that in there. This is your secondary jet. Screw that down in there. Just give it a little snug. Now, right here on this brass fitting where my fingernail is where this rubber piece goes. So we're just going to pop that in there. Okay, make sure it's popped down on there. And then this rod, the steel rod, goes up through there. And when this pivots, that rod pushes. Okay, now you take that rod out for a second because I'm going to tip this back over and it's probably going to fall out. Okay, where am I here? Okay, this is our fuel adjustment screw, and there's a spring that goes onto that. They go like that. And screws right into the top of the housing right here. Now just screw it in part way where it's got some tension on the spring, that way it won't come out, fall out. And we're going to have to adjust that later, and I'll show you how. Now, this hole right here, I took this off camera. This is your enrichener. Some people like to think it's choke, but it's not. And this just slides in here. Just like that. That's also 1/2 inch. Turn it into it's just snug down. That's all. Okay. And then you have your housing that holds your throttle cable. And it's pretty easy to tell where that goes, because if you see this part here where the screw goes and this little stud, fits right into there, and that's where the little stud goes. Fits in there just like that. put your screw in. Snug it down. Now, you just got to marry the two halves. Don't forget to put this rod back in where the rubber goes. Where is it? Right here. And don't forget your gasket. Usually I would recommend a new gasket. This one isn't too horrible. It actually looks in pretty fair shape. So now we just hook the two sides together. Get over here where you guys can see better. Got to get all the things in the right holes. And it should slide right together like that. Then we take the long one. Short one there. Short one there. And one over there. Again, be careful. Make sure you don't cross thread anything. You got steel screws and aluminum housings. None of this is fine thread, so they usually go all right. Get over here. Okay, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. That's it. Done and complete. Back together. Nice and clean. I love how that ultrasonic cleaner cleans things up. But I told you I would show you how to set this too. Now, this is just going to be base settings according to S&S. This is the basic setting when you put it on the bike to get you to where it'll start, run, and idle. And then, you know, obviously you got to adjust idle and fuel and, you know, so your plugs burn right. But I'm going to show you the basic setup. This right here is your fuel screw. You turn this all the way in with your fingers only. Don't use the screwdriver, and just barely snug it up. Let me see. Okay, that's snug. Now, you go out 1 1/4 turns. So this is half, 1 1/4. And that's where that one's adjusted. Now that's your base setting for your fuel going into the carb. Now, this screw right here goes for your where your throttle cable is. You want to back this off all the way so it's not touching. Let's see if I can get you in here so you can see better. This screw goes through and it has a stop. It touches on down in here, right here. You want to back it off so it's not touching that stop. Then you want to turn it. The stop I'm talking about is this tab right here. the screw goes through and it touches right on the edge of that tab. Now you want to bring the screw down right till it touches on that tab, and as soon as it touches, turn it one more half turn. Now, let me see. You want to go just touching right now. Now look down at the screw and go one half complete turn. Now what that's going to do, it's going to crack this throttle plate just enough to let it start and run and idle. Okay. Now, this one, this screw right here is for your accelerator pump. You want to screw that all the way in until it stops, very gently again. Now, once it's stopped, you want to back it off 2 complete turns. Let's see if I can get you in here so you can see this. There you go. That's closed all the way. You go half. Whoop. Get in there. 1. Another half. 2. And that's where that's set. That's your base settings. Okay, those are the only 3 settings on this carb. And that's your base settings. You put this back on the bike and you start it. It will start and it will run and it will idle. Then you're going to want to take this out. You're going to want to warm your bike up, ride it around for 5-10 minutes because you do not want to adjust a cold bike. Because then if you adjust it when it's cold, when you start it, it's going to run rich. And so get it warmed up, then you can make any of the adjustments you want. You want to make your adjustments with your RPM set at 1,000 RPMs. I'm not going to make you guys watch the... Here, get this thing set up so you can see me. All right. I'm not going to make you guys watch me put this back on the bike. You watch me get it off. You can figure out how it goes back on. I got a hypercharger, so most people, it isn't going to be the same to watch me do this anyway because it got a regular air cleaner. Just putting this vent hose on here. Anyway, that's how that goes. I'm getting it back on the bike. That'll be all set and ready. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to jump on getting the electric done on that. I should hopefully have that all tied up tomorrow. I've got all the electrical and connections I need, wiring, and so we can get that all done. And then it'll be ready. It'll be ready to start, go out for paint. I might start it running off an IV bottle just to let you guys see. I don't want to put gas in the new tank and then have to drive or drain it back out to send it off for paint. But so there you go. Super E carburetor from S&S. Disassembly, clean, reassembly, and set the basic adjustments. Okay, again, Pat from West Corners Custom Cycles, as always, keep the shiny side up, be good to each other, and live life behind bars. All right, peace out.